Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this week I'm joined by Julia Brown of Brown Owl Design. Hi Julia.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me. It's always really funny when I do these introductions because like we've already been chatting before, so it's like hi Julia, and it's like yeah, we've said that 5 minutes ago.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you. We're both feeling quite pleased with ourselves today because we've got our hair and makeup looking nice, and I have just been deciding whether or not to wear a hat because I was having a bad hair day. So that's a little insight into behind the scenes of a podcast. Anyway, we're talking to Julia today because Julia does all of my book covers. She designs all of my book covers and they're so fabulous and I love them so much. And they're just totally different from any other book covers that I see out there, which is part of the reason why I love them. But I just wanted to talk to you today, Julia, about both book covers and generally art, because you're also an artist. I'm going to get you to talk about that, and a little bit about you. So tell my listeners who you are. How did you become an artist?
Well, I'm Julia Brown, and that's kind of the old cliche that I've been drawing and painting since I was a small child. So it's kind of one of those. I was lucky enough to be able to pursue it at school and have the support of my parents to go and do it at university and did a fine art degree. And I painted for a few years, and then kind of life got in the way, as it does with many artists, having to earn a living, and I had to get a job and pay for houses and the normal stuff that life throws at you. So yeah, I kind of always kept my hand in doing more commercial art, I guess. Concept design for a Christmas decorations company for a long time, and that was kind of designing the massive grottos that you see in the places like Westfield in London and Centre Parks and all sorts of places. So that was kind of weird doing Christmas in April for several years running, but I kind of got that commercial side and did sort of design and illustration and fell in love with that as well because it's a completely different discipline, and then a living from it. And then eventually I just got to the point where I don't know, I miss the fine art side and the painting, and I think it was something more recently as well that I've taken a lot more time to kind of get back to and realise how much I enjoy it. So I had a horrible job for a while, didn't feel like I was going anywhere, so I quit that, decided to start up on my own doing design and illustration, and then that's kind of led a full circle back into the painting again. So
That's really cool, because most people, I think a lot of people, a sad number of people hate their jobs, I think, and most of them I think just stick with it. So it's a really brave thing to do, to leave your job. How did you feel when you did? Was it scary?
Yeah, very, very scary. I was quite lucky at the time that I kind of eased into it because I had an old contact that I ended up doing a few months of freelancing for. So when I decided to press the quit button on my job, I knew I'd got a few months' money coming in to get my ship in order and then start obviously building up other clients and going my own direction. So that was a nice way of doing it, and I was lucky, and it was great because I didn't have the traditional thing everybody says of, oh, if you're going to quit your job and start your own business up, you must have a 6 months buffer of salary, and it's just like, if you kind of spent your life building that up, you probably never quit your job because it's never possible. But it's not on the wages I was on anyway.
But sometimes circumstances force you, don't they? Because I did not. I had nothing. I left. I was like, you can't find me. I quit, and that was it. And it was like, oh.
That was kind of pretty much where it was getting to with my job. It was a very kind of quite a toxic workplace, and it was never going to go anywhere really. So there's times in your life when you've just got to draw a line under it and get on with it and kind of stand up for yourself and carve your own path, think a little bit. And it was very, very scary, and sometimes it, quite frankly, it still is. But it's also being sort of mistress of your own destiny is absolutely fantastic. And it's lovely being able to work hard, but work hard where you want to, and take time off when you want to, and fit other things in, and have a much more flexible life. So that's a fantastic bonus to it. And I'm not gonna kind of be one of these people who say, oh yeah, I jumped in and made my million in the first year I did a business. I had a huge amount to learn, and I don't think I ever realized how much I needed to learn about business, marketing, everything, apart from my own skill set. and I'm still learning, and I think it's only just after 4 years, nearly 5 years, it's just all starting to come together. So yeah, it's not easy, but if you've got a thirst for learning and kind of for making yourself better, I think that's one of the fundamental things you need to have if you're going to run your own businesses. You need to have that kind of passion for improving yourself and improving what you do, and making sure you can kind of wear quite a few hats to start off with, I think, as well, until you get to the point where you can farm it out.
Yeah, for sure. It's a scary thing. I just closed my email program so that it wouldn't distract me, and that's where my questions are. Such a professional. Okay, so I love your story, and you've worked so hard as well. I know how hard you've worked because we've been working together for quite a long time. Which leads me on to how did you get into book covers? What made you decide to do book covers?
I love books, and I think also I kind of did what most graphic designers do, and have a massive umbrella full of different things that you kind of not specialize in but kind of know how to do. And good design is good design, but obviously certain aspects of it are completely different. So I'm not a UX designer or a web designer particularly. I can design stuff for the web, but my passion is always been print, and I think that maybe comes from the illustration as well. And so when I first started, I offered quite a few different design packages, and it could pretty much do what people asked. But I got to the point where I wanted to specialize and learn more and do the book design thing more intensively, because it's such a there's a huge creative breadth within the field of book design as it is. And I love the fact that it lends there's non-fiction, there's fiction, there's the interior illustration, external illustration, the photography retouching or kind of image manipulation that you'll have on the covers, and then also kind of layout and just making a book desirable from a thumbnail on a computer screen or on your phone, or from 20 feet away in a bookshop, or close up as well. And the books are a thing, the actual paper and cards, and they're a thing, and it's beautiful. It's kind of something you treasure for lifetimes. And we were just chatting before I came on screen. It's kind of, I've got books from my grandparents, and they get passed down, and they're constantly useful, but they can also be constantly beautiful as well. So yeah, they're nice little objects that have a use and a lasting value. So I think making the covers sing and making them beautiful but also work really well as practical covers is a really, really nice kind of balance of creativity and the problem solving and the solutions that you need to make as a designer. So yeah.
Cool. And so what makes a good non-fiction book cover? Because I know people will be wondering that if they're thinking of writing a book.
I think in simple terms, it's got to attract. It's the front of your book cover and the back is the advert for your book, literally, because unless you don't see books hanging around with just the writing on the internal text as a cover, because there's no way people would be able to decipher it short in the short seconds that it takes to make a decision about what you want to read. So yeah, it's like a movie poster when you go to the cinema. It entices you into wanting to find out more about it, and adverts on the telly, 30 seconds will make you want to look up something even more and buy it, basically. So yeah, a good book cover must sell the book, literally.
So what do you think about when you're designing a book cover? What sort of elements do you think about?
The internal content, obviously. The genre of the book really is a good starting point, because although books need to stand out and look different enough to be attractive and not kind of blend into the crowd, they do need to kind of fall within parameters of your genres. So you wouldn't design the cover of a horror novel in the same way that you design a book about business and finance, for example, although two might be horrors. But it's it needs to sit within its genre and be instantly kind of recognizable in that context, but it also needs to stand out. And I think things like colors, there's obviously the client who's writing the book will hopefully have a brief that will go into a bit of detail about which audience they're trying to appeal to, and what they want to say in their book, and how that needs to come across on the cover. So all those sort of things taken into account. Where in the world it's going to be sold as well, because I mean, most books these days are online, they're sold worldwide, but if it's for a specific target country or audience or community, or it needs to appeal to that, and go by the boundaries of etiquette, I suppose, as well. There's certain things you could do in one culture that would be acceptable and not in another culture, so you need to be aware of little things like that. There's a lot of different, it needs to be legible, and the kind of text used needs to kind of sit well and be easy to read and noticeable. So quite a few different considerations really.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you read, there's a lot of obviously loads of advice out there about how to design book covers and things, and I've seen a lot, and I often give advice as well that says, keep it simple, because a simple book cover is good. But then if you look at my latest book cover, which I will grab, mine is beautiful, but it's not the kind of simple look that a lot of books in my genre have, and there's a couple of good reasons for that. Firstly, because I wanted one of your beautiful illustrations on the front, and second, because I kind of wanted it to stand out. So can you tell us a bit about the thought process between like the really simple styles of books, so maybe something a bit more like Drayton Bird's book, which is like a bestseller, and something like mine?
Okay, so I think there's a difference maybe between simple and minimal. Minimal is very, it can have, say, like maybe 2 colours. There'll be, white background and black writing or black titles. And I think with yours, it was your character comes through. You kind of quite bubbly, and I know some of your dresses, I kind of took inspiration from the illustration, and I kind of, there's the way you present your business and the way you encourage people to write, but it's not minimal, it's very involved and it's very supportive, and you kind of build a relationship with people in order to help them write their books. So I wanted it to be quite personal, and I think you sort of mentioned that you wanted an avatar for yourself on the cover anyway, so it made sense to have this kind of your love of books and your kind of various different backgrounds in copywriting and book writing and all that kind of thing sort of shown in the books. And then there's obviously the typewriter, so that's kind of a nod towards the writing. And I think there's also sort of like I know you have your favorite mugs and cookies as well. You kind of mentioned on various occasions that you have cookies for breakfast.
That's one of the other books that I want to write this year is Cookies for Breakfast, because we've started working on that cover, haven't we?
Very simply. So there is a few nods towards your kind of personal
sheeps.
Background as well, your tiny sheeps.
There is Whiskey the cat.
There is, the cat's up there. So and the flamingo on the side as well, which is one of your kind of
flamingo. And there's also eggs. I love that.
Eggs from chickens.
I didn't spot those at first. I love my book cover so much.
So I think because the insides of your book come from your heart, it kind of makes sense to help the outside of your book sort of speak of that as well. And I think obviously there's the vibrancy of the colour, and that's kind of something you notice from quite far away. So there's a lot of books about writing books that are very minimal and very matter of fact and straightforward on the covers, and I think it stands out quite heavily against those.
I think so too. Okay, so my next question for you, and I know that a lot of people will be thinking about this, and even if they're not, they should be, which is why I'm going to ask you, because I know this is something that makes your life difficult sometimes. What are the elements of a good brief? What's the best way to work with a cover designer? I'm going to ask you the first question. What absolutely drives you nuts about people? And you can totally say me if you want to, because I know that I can be quite demanding.
You've not been too bad actually, because you generally have you're happy to kind of leave me to get on with things, and we kind of, now we know each other fairly well, I can get on a similar wavelength to you anyway. I think but it chops and changes. But in the initial stages of designing a cover for someone, if a client comes to you and says, "Oh, you can do anything you like," like, well, no, you need some parameters to work by, because short of most of the time, and I'm one of these designers, and most other designers will have a similar kind of working practice, is that you build a package for people, and obviously there's a price, but that includes only so many revisions. It's not this kind of how long is a piece of string of design something, revise it, design something, oh no, I don't like that. And when you're given a set of parameters in a brief, it gives you a much better fighting chance of getting on the same wavelength as the client in terms of what they like and what will actually be good for them as well, and good for their book. So yeah, I think having a brief gives the client themselves a lot more clarity about what they need to think about in terms of what the book will look like and who it will appeal to, but it will also give the designer a chance to get on the same wavelength as the client in terms of what they like, and give them a fighting chance of designing something strong for them that they know will work for the book, but they'll also like. And I think also clients must realise that what they necessarily personally like is not necessarily what will work well for their book cover and what will attract their readers. Now, I'll qualify that, because sometimes, you know, your clients, the person who would be reading the book, you know, the same attraction of audience, but there's a lot of occasions where I've had it where someone will kind of say, oh, I don't really like that cover, and this and this and this, and it's like, well, but it's actually not going to be targeted towards you, it's going to be targeted towards your readers, so you need to think about what will attract them and what will speak to them and why. So I think that's a big thing that people need to think about when they're designing their covers. Don't take it personally, and don't design personally for you, you know. So yeah, it's
gotta, yeah, because with that, because you're totally right, you've got to have a cover that speaks to your audience, and I also think that as long as you don't hate it, because I think if you hate it, then it's a problem, and you can change it. But as long as you don't hate it, if it's something that's going to work well for your target audience, then yeah, definitely it's important to remember that it's not aimed at you. And then there are tests you can do. It's like you get on Facebook and run some split tests and see which ones test well. Same with
yeah, it's kind of an easy enough thing to do, sort of make, you know, they'll generally be in the first round of design sort of 2 or 3 minimum covers that are kind of variants on the same idea, or, you know, using different pictures maybe, or different texts and kind of layouts to get an idea. And yeah, testing it out on either your email list or on Facebook or something like that is a great idea, and you can kind of get a response back from the people you're aiming at and see which one kind of works or gets the most clicks or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a sort of balance between being given kind of strong parameters around the author's kind of target audience, and then also if their personality maybe, or kind of making the book theirs and not just too generic and kind of faceless. So yeah, it's really hard to put into words sometimes. It's a bit of a balancing act, but I think in order to do a good brief, the main points are the practical side of it. So you need to have a basic idea of whether you are publishing at a certain size. You know, there's sort of quite a few different book formats and sizes, so different colours, different covers can be different shapes, and it sounds weird, but you know, and certain rectangle can be short and fat, and a certain other rectangle can be tall and thin, and sometimes when you design a layout for a book cover, they don't always work well together, or you know, when you chop and change them. So I think, yeah, your book format and size, an idea of what you want content wise as well, you know, your titles, subtitle, if you've got any blurb on the back cover that you want, or photographs or specific images and colours, that's useful to help, you know, designer get an idea. kind of times and dates as well. It's worth, you know, sometimes people come to me and say, oh, can you design me a cover? I need it for like 2 weeks. And sometimes it's possible, but there's quite often occasions where I'm in the middle of another project, or you just haven't got that level of the development time and research and everything else I've got to do in order to create a really good book cover is not going to get done in 2 weeks. So I'll have to turn people down. So it's well worth thinking far ahead when you're kind of at probably your first edit, really.
Definitely.
And you've got a good idea of what your book's going to be about. So yeah, it's worth approaching a designer around that time, just to make sure they can fit you in, and that they can do the job to the best of your ability, really, as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a few different things in the brief, really. But it's I'm kind of in the current process of writing blogs and guides about creating briefs for designers and what to think about. So yeah,
I was going to ask, because I know you've been creating a useful document for people to help them brief designers and things. So where can people go to find that?
It's at brownowldesign.com, and it will appear on the front page of the website, so you'll be able to have a look at that. It's easy to find.
Yeah, so when this podcast goes out, it'll all be up, I should think, because
yes,
we're recording this in advance. So yeah, go to brownowldesign.com. And is that the best place for people to start if they want to get a book cover designed with you?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a contact page on there, so have a look through. There's various blog posts that I've done that are quite informative about, you know, have a think about different things. And there's a guide to an illustration brief as well. So aside from the book design, I do the illustrations as well, if anyone ever wants that kind of thing in tandem with book. Illustrations sometimes work. They're not always the best fit for the type of cover that you need. So it's a sort of it's a discussion that to have with someone about it, basically, whether it'll work or whether it's something specific we want. But I mean, I've ended up doing the cover for you, but also some like internal illustrations for the section headers and the front. So yeah, that was really fun to do.
That's a frontispiece.
Yeah,
there's some really good stuff that you could do, because even if you don't want your book fully illustrated, and like you said, that's not always a good idea, it's not always practical, not everybody's gonna have the budget, doing things like this just for the section headers, just to illustrate what the section's about, are brilliant. So you've done those for me, which is fantastic. And yeah, just a couple more things before I ask you about your art, because I want to ask you about that. But, we've been talking about other things that you can do with your book cover and your book cover designs, because obviously it's quite an investment for people. I always go for your top package, because I love your illustrations and I love everything that you can do, and I also want to get the best value out of it. And that's one of the great things that working with you has done for me, is it's given me all this other kind of collateral to use. So tell us a little bit about what else you can do with your cover design once you've got it.
So basically the cover design itself is obviously goes on the book, but at the time you're wanting to market and promote your book, I basically create the mock-up versions of it. So it's a set of images that have your book cover superimposed basically on a set of books. So it means that before you ever get them back from print, you can start marketing your book, and you've got a visual image of a stack of books and iPad and that kind of thing. To market with and put on your website. And I think, you know, if you're going to sell a book and self-publish, you can build a little website, sell it yourself, get it through Amazon, and it means that you can market that and have quite a strong presence on the internet, and make sure your book's not getting kind of lost in everything else. So that's really handy. Also, a lot of people are doing spoken word versions of their books these days on Audible, so you can do Audible thumbnails and like tie that in with the cover and make it a kind of all sort of cohesive looking package.
For me, and you also did the podcast icon for me as well, which also ties in with the book.
Yes, and then there's social media graphics that can tie in with, you know, if you have a book illustration or different, you know, a sort of image that goes with it, and the titles, and make all that kind of blend back in. So it's kind of, you know, you go on Instagram and you see, I mean, I've done it with you for like some quotes from the book, and so it's instantly recognizable. And then when you click on that, it takes you to the book page, and it all ties together and makes it much more kind of cohesive and noticeable, and people remember it because they keep seeing the same set of images all the time, so it kind of gets seared on your brain a little bit better with that kind of thing. So yeah, that print on demand as well, which is a massive kind of worms, quite frankly. When it all works, it's fantastic, but Amazon have notoriously annoying parameters on their website to try and get everything. I think it's all done digitally rather than by humans. So yeah, I think we've had a couple of like just niggly moments getting it done, and I'll have with a few other clients as well, so that I can help people get that all set up rather than them battling with it to do it themselves.
And I recommend that you do, if you work with Julia, ask her to help, because I've cracked it now, but it's taken me so long, and so I can now do it myself for my clients, which is fine. But yeah, if you're going to work with a designer, get them to do all of that, because it's just really difficult.
I think there's sort of it comes down to millimeters, or you know, or tenths of inches, and if you're in the States, and it can be it's frustratingly difficult to get you cover kind of pass through their revisions process if it's not absolutely millimeter perfect, and which is ridiculous, because yeah, there's a few things to do with where text sits on in the cover and the spine and that kind of thing. So it's something, if you know ahead that you're going to be doing print on demand, you can design the book cover to work with that, rather than having to retrofit it and make a bit of doing a lot of messing around. So yeah, that kind of works well as well.
And I was just going to grab the other thing that you designed for me that goes with the whole book thing, which is which I love my bookmarks, so they're great, and I always send a handful of them out. My light's terrible. Handful of them out to people, but yeah, you can see that, you know, it matches up with the book cover design, and yeah, it's perfect. So,
and you put really cool messages on there, so you know, got sales messages, tips, all sorts of different things. I mean, the illustrator, I really like yours. I like the sort of the illustrations on both sides as well, so it's nice and colourful. You know, you kind of drop it down the back of the sofa, you can find it again, that kind of
little whiskey on it again, my little whiskey cat. So yeah, I love that. And you're also designing me some book plates at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, indeed, which was kind of, I think they need to come back into society. They seem to be a bit of a long forgotten thing that should have a bit of a reintroduction. So yeah, that would be really, I'm just doing that at the moment, so within the next week or so we should have book plates as well, which would be really cool. And yeah, I think it's a really nice idea. It just personalizes it a bit more, doesn't it? So
it does, it really does.
Pretty easy to do as well in the days of stickers. You don't have to get gummed ones anymore.
Oh. I have to lick them. Yeah, I remember those days. Right, we are running out of time, so you're going to have to come back at some point and talk about other things that people can do to launch their books. But before you go, can you just tell us what you're working on fine art wise at the moment? Because I don't want people to think you're just, because I know that fine art is the thing that is where your heart really lies. So what are you working on at the moment?
So well, I've got a couple of paintings which are landscapes, actually, watercolour based, in a gallery in North Yorkshire in Helmsley called the Look Gallery, which has been a really, really big thing for me in 2019, because I've done quite a few shows over the years down in London, but it's the first time I've actually had paintings in a practicing gallery alongside some quite decent artists, actually, like Simon Palmer and Paul Talbot Greaves. So yes, name dropping a little bit. It's really exciting.
That's because you
and at the moment, yeah, and I'm currently working on some oil paintings as well, which is kind of where my heart really lies. I like my oils, so they're at the moment based on they're sort of landscapes, but they're also how our industrial heritage kind of sits in context of our landscape. So a few months ago, my partner and I, Damon, we went up to visit Threlkfeld Quarry, which is near Keswick in Cumbria, and it's a slate mine, because he needed to collect some bases that he'd ordered for his sculptures. He's a really, really good sculptor. So we picked those up, but we went to this quarry at Threlkfeld, and it was this amazing kind of beautiful, quiet place with just birdsong, but it was like a graveyard of kind of plant machinery as well. So there's always like weird kind of architectural machinery, quarry lifters, cranes and jibs and all sorts of things, and metal and rusting stuff, but it's all kind of been a working quarry as well, and it's it had this only like weird savage beauty about it because of it was getting overgrown and kind of falling apart, but there was all these kind of surviving bits of kind of evidence that humans had been there and done something with the landscape. And I think this country has got so many amazing old mills and buildings, especially where I live in Yorkshire, that are either being repurposed for modern life, or they're kind of falling into disrepair and like being reabsorbed back into the landscape. And it's really fascinating me at the moment. So yeah, the kind of the sort of landscape, but not.
That sounds really fascinating, and I know that you share some of your works in progress as well, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Where can we find those? Where can people find those?
I'm on Instagram as Julia Brown Art, and I'm currently building a new website at the moment, so that's a work in progress, but that will be juliabrownart.com. So yeah, that's on its way in the next few months. So it'll have a gallery and a shop and blog posts and kind of notices about where my work's being shown at the time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to get that finished.
Fantastic. I'm really excited as well because I own a piece of Julia Brown art, so it's very exciting. I've got one of your limited edition pieces, which I'm still waiting to have the perfect place to put up. But where can people buy art from you? Because
at the moment, well, when I get the website up and running, I'll be able to put what I need on there. But yeah, Look Gallery at the moment is where I've got the paintings. I'll be having a show this summer as part of a group show at a place called the Sculpture Lounge, which is just outside Home Firth. Last of the summer wine fame. Home Firth have an art week. So it's like a massive festival of art, and they have quite a few exhibitions all over the place that will be part of that. So yeah, I'll be showing there as well.
Amazing. What date's that on?
I'm not entirely sure at the moment. So a lot of things need to be confirmed about it. So I think it's usually about the first week in July. It spreads over the entire week. So yeah.
Oh, I'm going to try and get up, and I'm going to come up and have a look, because I've never seen any of your art exhibited, and I really want to. So yeah,
I'm really excited about that. It'd be great.
Cool. Okay, well, we've run out of time, sadly, but thank you so much for coming and talking to me. It's been fab. It's always fab talking to you. It's been really useful, I think, for people who are writing books and wondering where on earth to start with book covers. So if you are writing a book or thinking of writing a book and you want to know more about how to find a good cover designer, then first of all I'm going to say go to Julia, because she's amazing, and second of all, if she can't fit you in, you can find her booklet about how to brief at brownaldesign.com. Right?
Yeah, go to there, go get lots of information and read up on stuff, and yeah, give me a shout if you'd like some help.
Yeah, and sign up for her emails as well, because Julia's emails are fantastic. I really enjoy them. Get loads of good ideas myself. I'm like, I quite often read one of your emails, I'm like, damn it, I wish I'd written that. So it's really cool. Julia, thank you so much for coming on. You have to come back again soon, because I want to ask you more stuff if we run out of time. In the meantime, Joe will be back same time next week, and we will be talking about something fabulous. I'm not sure when this is going out, so I don't know where it fits in my schedule of podcasts, but it will be, awesome as always. If you don't like it, other podcasts are available. If you enjoy this podcast, please go to iTunes and rate us 5 stars and review us, or however many stars you want, but preferably 5, or share it with people, or if you could leave a review, that would be fabulous. If you've listened to every single episode of this show or the Business of Superheroes show, then drop me an email, vicky@vickyfraser.com, and let me know, and I will send you a little special something to say thank you. Don't get your hopes up, it's very silly. And we'll be back same time next week. So thanks again, Julia. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.